Okay guys, in this video, I'm going to cover the basics to creating our coil vases using porcelain. Everyone in class made a template like this, and you should have all your pretty drawings and designs that we're going to be incorporating with our underglaze as soon as we're completed constructing them. What you then did is you created a form that we're going to be using as a rib tool. This is your positive space. We then went in and we created a negative space for it. This is going to help us to achieve this shape when we are all finished. So the first step is to create a bottom for our vase. I created a whole bunch of different circles for you guys to work with. If you want to go ahead and find another object in the room and trace that, you are more than welcome to. This one happens to line up pretty decently with my vase form. I'm gonna have a bunch of others you guys can choose from, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with this one. Next thing you're gonna do, and you could do this as a group if you want to do it individually, that's fine as well. You're gonna take a small piece of clay, about this big, and I'm just gonna have you guys roll out the porcelain directly onto a piece of scrap cardboard. We don't need to go through the whole slab roller because we just need really small pieces. Now you wanna have a substantial base, so you don't wanna roll it paper thin. I'm gonna just move this piece off to the side, and I'm gonna use that for coils later on. We don't wanna go ahead in and waste any of our clay. What I'm gonna do next is I'm going to apply my circle directly onto my clay, and I'm gonna be going in with the X-Acto style tool, and I'm gonna be cutting out that circular form. Don't worry about messing up the paper. We could always cut more out. However, if they do stay nice, we will save them. So now I'm gonna move that off to the side. Here is my base, just so you guys can see how thick it is. I'm gonna hold up my hand for measurement, about that thick. Next, we are going to be working on something called a banding wheel. Now, a banding wheel is going to help us to create a really nice, really centered vase. What you're gonna do is you're actually gonna take the base that you made, and I would go in and smooth up the edges a little bit before you go ahead and attach it on. Try to make sure it's as even as possible. And on the banding wheel, there are little grooves, and it's gonna be able to spin. So you wanna line up your circle as close as you can to the center using those little lines as a guide. You're gonna wanna take a little bit of slip and just put, I don't know, about a tablespoon or so onto the center. Then you're going to take your bottom piece, and I'm gonna find approximately where the middle is. And the slip will help you glide it a little bit as well, so don't worry about being too perfect. But once you want it to finally settle and you feel like you're even, you're gonna go ahead and you're just gonna apply a little bit of pressure, not too much because we don't wanna smush it, but just enough so that it's gonna stick down. So I'm gonna give it a little wiggle, and it's on my board, and I think we're pretty good. So the next step after that is for our very first coil, we're gonna go in and we're going to slip and score. So I am going to go in with my little X-Acto tool. You guys can really use any tool as long as you're going to get those little score marks in there. So it'll look something like that for the slip to seep into. The next thing you're gonna do is you are going to roll out a coil. Now we're working with porcelain clay, which is a new clay body to us, so it's gonna take a little while to get used to. It's not as easy to smooth in the beginning as, say, a stoneware would be, but it is really nice to roll out coils. So you're gonna take a piece of clay and you're really compressing the clay between your hands, and for this part I am applying quite a bit of pressure, and you wanna create a cylindrical form. Make sure that you have enough space on your table, and you're gonna take your fingers all the way from the tips down to the palm of your hand. And I'm just gonna roll it out, starting in the middle and slowly working my way out. Now you guys will notice as this rolls out, it's very similar to a dough or a Play-Doh. It's very rich and buttery. And you'll notice that as you work with the slip as well. It's definitely a really nice medium. I'm gonna break this in half because I feel like I have quite a bit of clay and I'm not actually making that large of coils quite yet because my vase starts out rather slender at the bottom. Now you don't want your coils to be really big, however you don't want them to be super tiny either because we are gonna be blending them and smoothing them. So here's a coil. I would say roughly go for this size all the way around unless you're working with a smaller vase form. I'm then going to go in, and this is only on my very first coil, I'm going to apply score marks because we want to build a very strong foundation for our vases. So I'm gonna bring this guy back over here and I'm going to apply a little slip along the edges. It's okay if it's a little bit watery. If you guys would rather put some on the side and then apply it on, that's okay as well. So I'm gonna go in and I'm going to apply my first coil. Now I don't wanna just put my coil on because we had previously made our templates. Now our templates, we're gonna start at the very bottom and we're gonna gradually work our way up to create our vase shape. I'm gonna just roughly rest this on here, just so that I have it set on something. And then I'm gonna go in and I'm going to line, wrong side, the bottom of my template up. So this doesn't quite hit perfectly. I actually do have to move my coil out a little bit. And you could kind of break it off, leave a little bit of extra, and kind of go around and see where your coil is gonna be cut off. So I'm just gonna bring this in a little bit. And I'm really applying a bit of pressure. Once again, not enough to squish it, but enough so that it's going to stick on and lock on. I'm then going to line up my template. And I think it's a little bit better now. You can notice where the coil meets up with the template. Next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead in and smooth. So you can smooth using a variety of things. If you would like to use a tool like this or one of the blue rib tools, they're really great smoothing tools. I like to use my hands personally because I feel like they're the best thing to work with when working with clay. However, we will go in later on and use rib tools as well. So we're just gonna go in and make sure you guys are supporting from the outside, and we're gonna smooth the inside. So we're bringing this coil down because it's pretty thick and we have a whole bunch of extra clay. And just please make sure that you guys are supporting these, because if you're not supporting them, it's just gonna start to press out. And then you're gonna do the exact same thing with the bottom of your pot. So I'm just going in with my thumb now, and I'm using just 1 or 2 fingers rested inside the bowl to go ahead and offset that pressure. So let me just go ahead, finish attaching this real quick. You guys should take your time on this. We're only gonna be attaching, like I said, I don't know if I said this already, 3 to 4 coils a day, because we do want it to firm up and set up. So once we have this, I'm gonna have you guys go in with your template. We are gonna line it up with the very bottom, And we're going to hold on to our banding wheel tightly and also make sure that this is completely flush and flat. And I'm just going to slowly spin. And what this is doing is this is removing any of the excess clay around the edges to create a really smooth, really nice surface. So you could see just how much clay this took off. This was all extra clay that was uneven on this pot. So I'm gonna put this one aside and I'm going to take one out that I had previously been working on. So you can see that the top here is rather messy, but that's okay. We're not gonna worry about that until the very end. I'm going to go ahead and attach a coil now again. And once again, you wanna use your template. So I'm gonna line it up, and it looks like I have to move outwards a little bit. So I'm gonna start lining up my coil in order to do that. So I'm gonna lightly rest my coil along the outside edge. You can see that there's a little bit of space inside. And I'm just pushing it down. And that actually lines up pretty perfectly. I guarantee you that won't happen often, but when it does, it is absolutely lovely. I'm just gonna line my template up one more time. And I know that this seems maybe a little bit much, but this is going to give you a beautifully shaped vase in the end. And you're gonna have to trust me on that. So go ahead and you're gonna smooth your inside, really supporting it. And the porcelain will get easier to work with and easier to smooth as you build up your vase a little bit taller. You will have some markings in it, but we're gonna be going in later in class with something called a burnishing stone. And it's pretty much just working with a rock or a smooth piece of stone or glass and rubbing the clay with it. What happens is that compresses the clay and gives it a beautiful, beautiful shine. And then we could go ahead and apply our decorative designs to it. So make sure you're smoothed inside. And then I'm gonna go along the outside. As I get to this height, I would say this is maybe my third coil. I'm gonna actually go in and I'm going to apply my thumb and push up as I go. The reason I'm doing this is so that I could create more stability on the top here and more room to work with attaching coils as we go outward. If I were to bring it down, I wouldn't have this extra to build out. Porcelain also takes slip really nicely. Some of the other clays, when you apply slip to the outside of them, it just kind of makes the clay really wet and mucky. Porcelain, because it is a little bit drier, it holds the slip really well. So if you do have any patches that you want to go in, use a paintbrush, touch those up, that would be fine. I would recommend just waiting until you're a few coils in. So I have something that looks like that. It's not really all that pretty on the top yet, but it looks like that on the side. I'm then going to go in, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to use my negative space template one more time. Going all the way in, I'm gonna hold onto my banding wheel really tightly, and I'm just applying pressure, making sure that it's also really, really flat. And you could already see that it's starting to take some of the clay off, and it's starting to change the shape a little bit. Otherwise, our vase would be uneven. Now, I encourage you guys to really run this around your pot a few times. That's going to give you a lot more success in the shape that you're forming. So once again, top, not so much, but we're going to fix that as we move along. But you could see just how smooth and just how even that the sides start to become. I'm gonna work on this a little bit, I'll show you in class, but this is gonna be the basics. So what I'm gonna have you guys do is grab your templates. You are going to grab a block of clay for each table, tools, slip, and you can go ahead and get started.